Today we're talking about podcasts that are popping, you might say, those leading the pack and the lists and rankings. And our next guest, well, they might be your next binge. It's been a month as #1 on Apple Podcast history charts, drawing listeners in with the family secrets, sex, and murder in the story. Take a look.
Let go of me!
Her name was Julie Elma, but everyone called her Elma.
Elma Sands was 22 when she was murdered in New York City.
It's a shame your entire case rests on a 27-year-old woman, Colton.
It's a shame your case rests on proximity to money and power, Hamilton.
Her body was found discarded in the Manhattan Well on the 2nd of January, 1800.
For the brutal beating and felonious murder of Julie Elma Sands, the prisoner Levi Weeks pleads not guilty.
Even with defense lawyers Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr on the case, this is probably the most famous trial you've never heard of.
The most famous trial you've never heard of. Well, a lot of people are listening to it. It was the nation's first murder trial, and now it's a top podcast. It's called Erased, the Murder of Elma Sands. Please welcome Allison Williams and Allison Flom to the show. Come on out.
Thank you.
I mean, this story is incredible. First of all, it's the first murder trial in United States history.
Yes, ma'am.
In the justice system.
In the justice system as we know it.
Yes.
Yep. And the incredible part of this is that you had a stenographer there, so all of the information comes from right in the room where it happens.
Exactly. To quote a musical that
Yes,
comes up.
that comes up time to time.
We've heard of it.
What a fascinating way to deliver it, though. This is like a radio play.
There was something so theatrical and stranger than fiction about this story. Like, we find out that this girl was murdered in a well. That well is in the basement of this clothing store, completely incongruous with what's surrounded. Yeah, the pictures on the screen, it's surrounded by like sweaters and scarves and gloves and mannequins. And I'm there with like my hands on this death site wanting to like scream at these shoppers, like someone was murdered here. I didn't do that because I instead found this goddess to help me amplify it in a more normal way. But I think finding that well, knowing that New York is changing all the time and erasing what stories get preserved. There was like a shot clock counting down. There was an urgency.
You gave me goosebumps with that, erasing the things that have happened, because this happened 224 years ago.
Yeah.
And we always talk about if these walls could talk. And when you look at this story, the misogyny, the vitriol toward the victim is crazy.
Yeah, it's really intense. It's honestly like tragically not far enough from the way people are treated by the justice system today, I think. But it is where it all started. If you look at it a certain way, had the people been in charge been a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more open to a system that was inclusive of everybody, this trial could have gone very differently.
Because
but instead,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, just the normal power structures that had already, determined everything, continue to determine everything.
I'm sorry to interrupt you because I'm so excited about this.
No, it's great.
To your point about today, it's about wealth, it's about access.
Exactly.
And it's about what happens to the least among us when they depend on the justice system for justice.
Yes. And that's why I wrote it in 2023 language, because this could happen today, and it is happening today. And I see every single day individuals and their stories being erased by the system because the system is doing its job. This trial exposes that it was built for people with money and connections and power to win and to erase anyone else that may be inconvenient. And because it's true, and this is something that drew Allison and I together in the first place, just in the social justice space, we have a massive human rights crisis of mass incarceration. And so many people who are rotting in cages right now are there because of a system that was set up for them to lose. And this trial, there was something about this trial that directly exposed this fatal flaw in the system, which is that it was set up to work this way. So Catherine, this 27-year-old boss queen who sacrificed her Quaker values to put the victim's body on display and inspire this trial, she trusted the justice system because it was brand new.
Because Catherine is played by Allison. And so the delivery of this is like a radio style where you really can listen to the story, act it out. You're the executive producer, but you're acting. It's Catherine, Alma's cousin.
Exactly. Basically, she was this person who trusted her country, trusted the justice system, was mourning the recent death of George Washington from the common cold, and just to put us back in time and place, and was someone who would have thought everything worked out the way it should, and then suddenly her cousin is murdered, and she feels that this wrong is not being paid attention to, and so she, in violation of her Quaker beliefs, makes the very, very bold decision to put her cousin's body on display publicly once it had been dredged up.
I want to play a clip about how Elma is portrayed. Remember now, she is the victim, and now she's identified as worthless. You talked about it, Allison. Let me play a clip.
So I'm no lawyer, but it seems like a good attorney builds empathy for their client. And Burr and Hamilton did that in several strategic ways, but they also kind of made Elma's life seem worthless and destitute as part of their argument. Almost saying like, so what if worst case scenario, our client did kill her? Like, who cares?
I mean, obviously, we all just walked out of the play a few years ago singing Alexander Hamilton.
I know every syllable of that musical.
And so do I. My son knows every song in Hamilton.
Yeah.
This paints him as complicated as he really is.
Yeah.
I love the musical. It was phenomenal. But Alexander Hamilton was a complicated man.
Sure was. And they get into some of that in the musical, and we get into more of it here.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a line in the musical about this.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is. This case is actually referenced in the musical.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of Elma's name, which I think is a microcosm of how this story is just used to support a larger narrative that we're taught time and again. This is a story that has been erased and pushed aside as collateral. It just offers another perspective on Hamilton. And I think it was complicated for Tony Goldwyn, I know, to play him.
But the reality is Burr and Hamilton defended the accused here.
They're kind of taking the Constitution for a test drive, and they're like, let's set this up so that we win, and then that's going to be the protocol. So whatever we need is going to become what the justice system is going to be and how it's going to work.
Everyone was their friends. Like, everyone knew each other.
Right.
Some of the expert witnesses for Elma were friends of theirs, and then they walked in the courtroom and they're like, oh, hey, you're here. Great, I'm gonna go to the other side. Like, crazy things happened in this trial.
The connections.
The connections, the jurors all went on to become like names that we know.
I love it because today it is exactly what's happening.
Yes.
And you think the past is prologue and what we can learn, but congratulations on this. I mean, it is compelling to say the least. And I love seeing you in person for the first time in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I love you both. Allison Williams, Allison Flom, here, all 6 episodes of Erase, the murder of Elma Sands. It's available. Trust me, you want to listen to this podcast. It's available wherever you see or listen to your podcast these days.